something to say, got something to say.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Our House 21, and you might wonder what the heck I'm doing. Okay, well, I have to go on the business trip, but I also have to get ready for the Run DMV speed run event that's happening this upcoming Sunday, and I have a lot of stuff to do and not a lot of time to do it. So as a result, here I am in my hotel room, surrounded by RC gear, getting ready to do what I need to do to get all the cars and all the stuff ready to run. So what you got in front of you, everybody knows my tried and true, here's Slade, and everybody knows my other tried and true, here's Dizzy. And these guys are pretty much ready to run, except for I need to swap out their electrical connectors. So everybody's in Castle Creations connectors, but you don't recognize these new guys in the middle. Now, this is a little bit deceptive. You've seen an unboxing video of an X01, but that was not actually this X01, because our house is running amok with X01s right now. So to give you the full rundown in 30 seconds or less, what I'm doing is I'm trying to prove a point. So the X01 and the Slash have a lot of common DNA. I talked about that before. But I decided that I wanted to build an X01, but I wanted to build it using Slash running gear. So this body you've seen before was on a roller that I picked up off of eBay. That's going to use as a foundation for another project. But this guy is a completely different roller. Yes, I have the same wheels on it, but I built this roller from scratch, I built this roller from the ground up, not from my car scratch, but basically just to prove the point. So this guy right here, this body is going on my built from the ground up my built from the ground up X01. So that guy is taking parts from the other rolling chassis that you saw before, and I also picked up another brand new car, and I'm building my own vehicle from another set of parts. So that car has a blue body as well. That blue body is not as beaten up as this blue body, but that's okay, because both of those bodies are getting refurbed, and this one's getting a brand new configuration. So this body right here, this guy, it's not in terrible condition, but it's not in good condition. It's been well loved, let's just say. So, but this guy, he's not done with his life, so I'm going to breathe some new life into it. So this guy's getting fiberglass, and guess what? That guy's getting fiberglass, and the other guy at home, he's getting fiberglass too. Everybody gets fiberglass. But for Run DMV, we're really for the purposes of this evening, or the next couple of evenings more precisely, you're going to see these two guys get fiberglass going from the ground up. And so actually you're going to get to see the painting process and the fiberglass process for this body here. And what's underneath here? Oh yeah, I have some other X01 parts just lying around. That I don't know if I want to put this on eBay or if I'm just going to keep it around for spares. But yeah, you know how they say, go big or go home. So I guess I'm going big. So all right, so just kind of putting it together. So part of why I'm filming this right here is because way back a long time ago, when I first fiberglassed Dizzy over here, I stated that I was going to publish a fiberglassing 101 video, and there's actually a missing video on my video description. So if you look through and look at the numbers, there's one missing. That was supposed to be fiberglassing 101. I never published it. I'm a bad boy. So I'm gonna rectify the situation right now. So ladies and gentlemen, after 7 minutes into the video, I welcome you to Our House RC Physics Fiberglassing 101. So like I said, we're gonna go over the entire process, so going from prep to everything that you do. And I have a funky little technique that I've been using to fiberglass my cars that kind of helped me to keep myself out of trouble. I'll share all that stuff with you. All right, guys. So now I'm actually doing these two bodies to kind of show two different stages or two different prep processes for doing different types of bodies, because some of you guys who are going to be fiberglassing or composite reinforcing, and the same techniques apply to whether you're fiberglassing or doing carbon fiber, doing Kevlar, what have you. Although different materials require a few different things, so I'll touch on where things are the same and where things are different. But if you're doing a pristine brand new body, the body's pretty much ready to go. So all you need to do is paint it, get it prepped, and then it's good to go. But if you're doing like me and also repairing a damaged body, there's a couple steps that you need to be aware of. Now, first thing, I'll go over here to the light. As you saw from my quick tip, sometimes these bodies are kind of beaten up. So you can do some things like using some heat to go ahead and try to knock down some of these dented areas. It's not going to be perfect, because when these bodies get beat up, they do serious deformation to the material. So you can work some of those things out, but you're not going to be able to heat out holes like this guy right here, who actually has parts of the Lexan coming up like that, or like along the back of the body here where you've got things, or like the back of the body here where you have it split and separated. So one of the steps I like to do is actually take some masking tape like this right here, and remember, you're fiberglassing to the inside of the body. So if you take tape and apply it to the outside of the body to hold the panels in position, or in places where you have something that's burned through, you can put some tape on the outside to basically hold in whatever your resin or your I'll just say fill material is going to be. And like I said, you saw at the other video there was a broken section on the front, so I just went ahead and masked that off there, and now you can see the new section here that is laying relatively flat. It's not perfect, but doesn't need to be. So once you're at this step, and actually let me drop off and I'll go ahead and finish applying the masking tape along to the other parts here, and then I'll jump to the next step of the process. Okay guys, so now you see that the panels have been taped over. So I've taken care of all the little cracks to basically hold the material together. Now you also see I've actually taped over the body holes as well. The reason for that is I'm going to go ahead and fiberglass the entire inside of the shell, the whole thing. And so that's it. And then after I get that done, then I'm going to come back with my reamer and ream these holes back out. So what that's going to leave me is fiberglass reinforced holes. So that is going to make these a lot stronger, and basically make them able to withstand a lot more load. And basically, once this is fiberglass and connected to your body, it becomes a part of your body structure, and that's different than the standard shells. Lexan shells, they're not the strongest things in the world. They flap around a lot. So when you get to high speeds, especially like these cars that are intended to go at like 100 miles an hour or even 70 miles an hour, these panels are flapping like crazy in the wind. The XL1 tries to stop that by having these little channels that try to hold the body in place. But like in the front of the body and on the back of the body, it's just all over the place. So if you roll over or you have some sort of impact, let's just say, a lot of that load is transmitted from the body into the car via your body pulse. So you see that a lot of people, these things basically get ripped right through. So by having these reinforced with the fiberglass, that just makes the whole thing a lot stronger. So next step of the process, I'm going to take my Scotch-Brite cloth. Actually, it's got it right here. Okay, I had it right here. There it is. So it's just a Scotch-Brite scouring pad. We're going to take this and just work it around the entire inside of the body. And what this is going to do is put a ton of microscopic little scratches in this outer surface material here, and that's going to allow the adhesive or actually the resin that I'm going to use to I'm going to use my fiberglass to bond to all these surfaces and get a nice good grab, and that's going to make the connection a lot stronger. So let me go ahead and Scotch-Brite this up, and then I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I've hit both bodies with the Scotch-Brite pad, as you can see right here. And okay, let me get it better background here. But as you can kind of see, if I look at it just to right angle, there's a little bit of a haze on the body now from the inside. So I'm sure more than one of you are out there like, oh no, he's ruined the body. Let's put it down on the floor here so you can actually see it a little bit better. So yeah, so now you can actually see in that reflection, there's a little bit of haze there. So don't worry about that. That's actually going to disappear. But what that's doing is it's actually giving a little bit of tooth for the paint to grab onto. And that's going to help to make a chemical bond and a mechanical bond to the inside of your body. That's going to be important. That's going to make your paint be a lot more secure. Because when you fiberglass, you know, the fiberglass is only going to stick to the surface it's connected to, which in most cases will be the paint. I've got something a little bit special planned for this paint job, so I'm actually going to get an even stronger connection, and you'll see that in just a few minutes. Okay guys, here we are, and we have both the Delta Plastics body and the new X1 body getting ready for paint. Now I just discovered a slight problem with the Delta Plastics body, and it's not really a problem with the body itself. It's just the fact that Dizzy has a lot of new internal structure for reinforcement and my custom battery trays and everything, and I designed that to fit the off-the McLaren body that it had. And this Delta Plastics body has a very low profile, which is to reduce drag, which is a very good thing. The problem is these lower surfaces interfere and impact my internal structure, so I can't use this on Dizzy. But I'll figure something out. So I'm gonna talk to Ben at Delta Plastics to kind of figure out an alternate plan for it. I'm still gonna finish this body, but I just might end up either needing to use it for a different vehicle, which doesn't exist yet, or I might need to give it away. I don't know yet. So we'll keep watching the channel. You'll see what's you'll see what I decide to do with it. All right, but now I'm about to lay down some paint, and you've seen me do this before, so I'm not going to film that. But I'll come back in when they're all ready, and then show you how I prep the painted bodies and get them ready for fiberglassing. Hey everybody, so you see I've got my two X1 bodies here, ready to go on the fiberglass. So like I said, this is a beat up basher body that I'm going to try to rejuvenate. Yeah, and I showed you the blemishes that were on it before that I kind of hammered out with a little bit of application of heat, tape everything up so it's sitting flat. So this guy's ready to go. And this one you haven't seen, but he's not quite fully yet. This is my new body for my new X1, which has not been named yet. But you know, I've come up with a pretty unique paint job, and you see it still has a protective coating on it, so it's got all my guide marks and everything, so it's going to look a little bit different after it's done. But you see here, I have some sections where I left clear because I want to have the windows exposed so I can see into the car during speed runs, so I can retrieve my equipment. But I'm also going to have some of these little guys still open so that you can actually see the fiberglass through the body. So I thought that'd be kind of a cool design feature. So now I already Scotch-Brited the inside of the basher body here, so he's pretty much good to go. So I can just set him aside. So now I'm just going to do a final surface prep of the new body, and this is freshly painted. And I actually this is just common painting technique. After I lay down all the colors, I just put down a coat of white just so it has a uniform finish. That doesn't do anything structurally. I just like to have everything look uniform inside. It makes it look a little bit more factory. It makes it look a little bit more professionally done, in my opinion. But you know, you don't have to do that step. But the other thing about that is that it gives you a nice uniform surface to bond to. So, but because this is fresh paint, it's a uniform surface, so I want to go back through again and just lightly go over it with my Scotch-Brite pad. Don't apply a lot of pressure here. Just simply go over, because what you're doing is you're making microscopic scratches on the surface, and just only on, I mean, obviously if you have clear windows, don't do this to the parts that you want to remain clear, because you're going to make them a little bit cloudy. But you know, again, like you see, I'm just doing very light pressure, because the goal here isn't to, you know, scratch it all up. What I'm doing is just making very fine microscopic texturing that in this new version paint, that's going to give the epoxy something to grab onto. So like I said, it's not too complicated a process. Don't spend a whole lot of time on it. You just, you know, just really light. Honestly, you don't even need to do the entire surface. What you really want to do is focus in on the high stress areas. And where are the high stress areas going to be? Well, they're going to be anywhere like the front and the rear sections where you might come into contact with things. In the XO1, you don't have to worry about the rear, about this section so much, because there's actually channels in the side of the body. Actually, I just happen to have an XO1 chassis right here. So the XO1 has these little channels inside the body, side of the chassis that the body fits into, like here, and that actually retains the body so that it keeps it from flapping around at speed. But it also gives it, it takes some of the stress off, because if you impact or something, it's going to hit here, and with the fiberglass, it's going to keep it in line. So you don't really, that's not going to be a really high stress area. The big high stress areas, like I said, are going to be right here on the front. Let me just put the body on the car, or at least on this chassis, so you can see. All right, there we go. So here you go. So you can see it just fits right down inside of there. And so you have the foam that comes right up underneath the bottom of the front here. So turn it over. The foam from the bumper, and it helps if you actually, there we go. The foam from the bumper comes right up against the body, so that it, you know, it keeps it from moving around too much, but it's still going to be a high stress area. So you want to make sure that your fiberglass is bonded really, really well there. So actually what I may even do after everything is said and done, this is a trick I learned on Scratch with his composite body. If you get repeated impacts on these guys, the fiberglass can delaminate. What that means is that when you fiberglass like this, you essentially make a second body that's molded to the inside of your Lexan body. And over time, the two can separate and they can pull apart. So to stop that from happening, I actually on Dizzy's body have I have a set of mechanical connections, basically some rivets that go through and join the body together along the front. And they also serve as the mount for Dizzy's front splitter. Because in the case of, since Dizzy was a scratch, Dizzy was a slash, it did not have a part of the structure of the chassis to mount the splitter to. So I have a very strong I have a very strong fiberglass body, so I just mount it to that. In this case, I don't need to do it, but it's still probably not a bad idea. Just like put 4 bolts or pop rivets or something along this area just to hold things together. And you could do the same for the rear, because if you get sideways or you get upside down, you're going to get contact in the rear too. So that's probably not a bad idea. So I'll probably just put a couple of bolts along the front and along the back just to help keep the bodies together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish just running over with the Scotch-Brite, and then I'll show you the next step of the process. Okay, I will point out along the step of the process that you should let your paint cure for a little bit before you actually do this process. And what I mean is, when you paint the car, paint is it's like a polymer chemical. When you first put it on, it's soft, and it takes a little while for the chemical reactions to finalize themselves, so that it becomes nice and hard, and that makes it a nice, good mechanical connection for you to bond into. If you try to do this process too soon, this is still going to be wet, and it's going to be soft. Does that affect the strength? It's still going to cure, you know, once you put everything together. But I just figure that, you know, just do this the next day after you paint. You know, that way you have something, you know, you have something strong to bond onto. So you have less chance of, you know, causing problems like accidentally rubbing off parts of your paint job and stuff like that, where you're just doing the Scotch-Brite. Okay, so let me just get my little brush. I'm just going to go over the inside just really quickly, just to make sure that when you Scotch-Brite, if you've got any little, weird little things inside, that like you can see I have these little burrs that kind of pop up, and they're just little places where when I was painting, a fleck of dust or something got onto the paint job, and that caused a little bit of an imperfection. And when I Scotch-Brite it, a lot of that stuff just popped right off. So, you know, you want to get as much of that stuff out of your car as possible. You know, because if you have any little things in there, it's going to make an impurity. And basically, it's going to provide a spot which you're not bonded to, and that's going to be a potential weak spot. You know, that's probably not that big a deal for this application, but you know, it's just good practice. All right, so now I've got that taken care of. Here is my fiberglass sheet, and so you guys know, I mean, you can use a lot. You can use a lot of different kind of composites, and the process here is the same. In this case, I'm going to be using this Bondo fiberglass cloth. This came from Home Depot. You can buy this at auto parts stores. You can get it anywhere. It's really cheap. I think it's like $7 for 8 square feet. So since the XL1 is a little larger car, I'm going to be using pretty much 2/3 of a sheet in order to do this. So I have to get 2 sheets in order to be able to do both bodies. But the same process works if you're using fiberglass or if you're using carbon fiber. Here you see these are some of my scraps left over from when I did my carbon Kevlar bodies. So, you know, like I said, the entire process is the same. One thing to keep in mind though is, like, if you are going to try to take on Kevlar, carbon fiber, it cuts really easy and it works a lot like the fiberglass. Kevlar is tough stuff. It's hard to cut Kevlar. That's the reason why it's used to make bulletproof vests, because Kevlar is extremely stretchy. In engineering terms, they call that a high modulus material. What that means is that it can be deformed a lot and still keep its shape and all that. And that's what you want that's what you want to do. The problem is that makes it dang hard to cut. But a little trick I figured out, since my wife sews, is that you can actually get fabric shears that are made to cut really resilient materials, and they actually work pretty well on the Kevlar stuff. So now, you've seen a lot of guys do fiberglassing videos, and at this point in the process, most guys will be breaking out some shoe glue or some other glue material to hold the body together, or to basically secure the composite to the body. And I used to do that too. As a matter of fact, I even brought some of it up with me. In this case, this is Loctite spray adhesive. So when I did Dizzy's body, actually all my previous composite bodies, I actually put a coat of this spray adhesive on the body, and then another coat on the back of my fiberglass, and then I bonded them together, and then I put the epoxy on top of it. But what I realized is that my epoxy that I use, let me just jump in. I mean, this was pretty much a Home Depot job, so I used Home Depot epoxy to be my resin. And this is a little different. The standard fiberglass, you use I think it's either polyester or polyurethane, I think polyester resin, to bond to. That makes a very strong mechanical bond. The problem with that stuff is that the chemicals, it creates crazy fumes, it's nasty to work with, it's messy and all that. I like using epoxy because this is 5-minute set material. So that means that you have a very short window of time to actually apply it, but it's only messy for 5 minutes. So if you are diligent with it and just kind of, if you set up properly, you should be able to put the resin on the shell in a very short amount of time. And I'll show you my technique to do that here just momentarily. But what I realized though is that when you use these types of materials to bond to the body, you're actually limiting the strength, because I mean, this is just, you know, it's medium duty spray glue. So it's spray glue. This is 3,500 PSI crazy strong material. This will bond to the body. So why have that in the middle? So, but the problem is, how do you keep this in place to have it, how do you keep this material in place so that you can epoxy? Well, that's where my new technique comes in. And I actually did this on Busy, but I didn't put all the pieces together until this body. So those who know the channel, you know that I have an unnatural love for hot glue. Well, this is another situation of hot glue to the rescue. So, and like I said, I did this on Busy's body, but I didn't realize how significant it was until after the fact. So to kind of just help hold everything together, I ended up putting in a bead of hot glue around a lot of the major parts that I wanted to keep the epoxy out of. So I use it like a hot glue dam, essentially. So I went around, you can see this is translucent, so I can see right through it. So I went around the windows and other areas that I wanted to, you know, just keep clear. I actually went around the body mounts, which, thinking about it, in hindsight being 2020, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just kept that strong too. But anyway, I just went around all those areas with the hot glue to bond it in place and then kind of work from there. But I can use that same technique, because the X01 body, if you look at it, there's not a whole lot of crazy shapes to it and everything. It's pretty much just a tub. So if I use a bead of hot glue going around these key components or places that hug along the body, I should be able to basically keep this guy in place. And then I can go in and I can epoxy straight through it, and the epoxy is going to make a bond directly to the paint, and that's going to be very strong. And which is also the reason why I took that extra step to make sure that I Scotch-Brite the paint. So I make some microscopic scratches so that the epoxy can grab into there and make an even stronger connection. So I'm going to go ahead, drop off for a minute, apply my hot glue, and then come back. Now, I'm just going to take a quick moment to say that not all hot glue is created equal. So I typically try to use name brand stuff. This is Stanley Dual Melt hot glue, and it's actually made to be used at 2 different temperature settings depending on what kind of project you're doing. So I also have a dual temperature gun. So this guy right here, this is what I use. It came from Aldi, and it's a good dual temperature gun, which is actually kind of hard to find in the small size. But by using this with these materials, I mean, it bonds to wood, plastic, metals, what they claim. So the low temperature setting is really more for like jewelry products and, you know, like art stuff. So again, the hot glue is not the strong structural component here, but it just helps make things better. Okay guys, now this is another important factor. Now fiberglass is extremely compliant, and what I mean by that is that this stuff will pretty much take any shape you want it to, but it does not stretch. It's not, even though it looks like a cloth, you know, these are tiny little glass fibers. There's no stretch in here whatsoever. So you want to start from one edge and work over the entire area. And you do that because when you try to, let's say like right here, where you want to conform into an area, you're pulling material from the sides. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of excess along the sides before you start this. And so do an initial layout and before you start to bond everything through, because if you run out of material, you run out of material. So you're going to have to cut some scraps from one place and then bond it in after the fact or something. But if you just start from one corner and just kind of work through, lay everything out first, and then just make sure that it follows along, follows the body shape, and lays smoothly, you're going to be fine. But this is important because if you don't do this, you're going to end up with little voids inside your material, and that's going to make a little pocket, which will make a little air bubble, which is going to basically reduce your bond strength in that area. So, all right, back to work. Now, the reason why this whole thing works in the first place is because if you look at this mesh, you see that it's, you know, translucent. You can see through it. There are these little air holes in here. So the hot glue and the resin that you use is actually able to go in and go between the between the gaps in the fibers and bond to the material that's underneath, and bond to the actual to the composite material too. So it ends up locking everything together as a nice structural unit. So, and these glass fibers are extremely strong. So they end up, the combination between the resin, which is strong by itself, but it's really more there to hold the fibers in place, which are much stronger still, and they make the two materials become one, and that's what the term composite means. A material that's made up of more than one, a final material that's made up of more than one stock material that are embedded together. So in case, well, what I'm doing with the hot glue is, since the hot glue is hot and liquid, it's able to run through those gaps and make a bond to the paint, just like the resin's going to do. This is a much lower strength bond, but like I said, this is just holding the resin, holding the fibers in place until I'm able to go in and put the epoxy. All right, back to work. All right, so I'm done with this body. I need to go ahead and do the next one, but let me just also just restate, don't go crazy with the hot glue on this phase, because hot glue is not as strong as the epoxy, so it's actually too much of it will get in the way. All you're trying to do is make sure that the sheet doesn't move around on you until you can put the epoxy in place. So it's moving around with the windows, and that's going to, let's say, help me to protect that piece clear. So, but after that, this is fine, because once I start to put the epoxy in, it's going to come in and a magical thing's going to happen. It's going to bond with this stuff, and it's going to want to sit down here really well, and I can smooth it in, and you'll see it's going to make a really good bond. So you want to have this able to be free and move around and bond, and basically conform to nice contours of the body. So just that gives you a little bit more flexibility. So these things, like I said, the main reason why you're doing this is just to make sure that you have enough material around so that you don't end up overstretching something or that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is perfectly fine. So all right, now let me go ahead and prep the basher body, and then I'll be ready to go into epoxy. Okay guys, so here's the basher body. Now I want to prep this one a little bit different, because as you can see, this one doesn't have windows, so I don't need to worry about trying to keep things clear. So in this case, I'm going to use less epoxy, but not less. In this case, I'm going to use less hot glue, and I'm just going to put a couple little dots at a couple of strategic places just to make sure that my material doesn't move around too much. But overall, since my keep out zones are non-existent here, I could really just drop in epoxy and just start doing it right now. But I just want to have a couple little tie down points just to make sure that I don't accidentally run out of material on the edges. Because like I said, this stuff doesn't stretch. So if you just lay it in and get a good rough lay, you're probably okay. But I'm just going to go and put a couple little stripes like here in the roof line, probably just to hold this so it doesn't move around too much. So the good part of this is that this is actually going to make this body even stronger than the other one. But a little engineering for you: domed structures are incredibly strong. Lexan is a very strong material, and where you have a dome in Lexan, it's really strong. So that is probably the highest strength area of this entire body, and that's what you don't see, like the cockpit areas flipped around a whole lot. It's these big flat areas that are the ones that tend to be a lot weaker, because they don't have they basically don't have the internal structure of like these dome shapes. So the parts that I left the windows exposed on the other body, they're less strong than on this, because it's going to have the composite, the fiberglass behind it, but that doesn't mean that they're weak. So they're plenty fine. So, but like I said, because this, we don't have to keep anything clear, that's just going to make this even stronger. Okay guys, so now I've got both bodies prepped for fiberglass. So now, again, this process, I'm going to be taking Loctite epoxy resin and laying it down. Now this is intended for be used in small batches, so I'm going to be using a lot of it. So, but I should probably use I'm probably going to use somewhere between a quarter and a half of these for each of the bodies. It doesn't take a whole lot, but so the process is you mix the stuff up together and you put it down at the body. Now, I'm going to use different techniques for the two bodies because they're different bodies. And with this guy, I might just go ahead and just mix the material inside and then use these little squeegees here. These are the ones that you use for like spreading on Bondo and body filler and that kind of stuff. They work really well for this application. So you want to make sure that your surfaces are nice and flat. So I'm going to have to do a quick cleanup because I didn't clean it from the last time I did epoxy. But you just want to make sure that this is nice and flexible, and you just get in, you lay the material, and you just lay it down. So no crazy science in this. But one thing I will say, the fumes from this stuff right here, they're less than the epoxy, they're less than the polyethylene, polyurethane, whatever. The fumes are less than what you see on the recommended fiberglass resin, but they're still not good. So you want to have a good respirator like one of these guys when you work on this, and you want to work in a well ventilated area because your lungs are precious and you don't want to destroy them for an RC project. Just saying. All right, so let me go ahead and do my last preps and jump in. Oh, and also you'll see I'm going to be wearing a pair of work gloves here. So you also don't want to get this stuff on your skin. Just protect yourself. So gloves, respirator, and I probably should be wearing a set of like fully enclosed rubber gloves, but I've done this enough where I can just keep it onto the protective material. But you see, these are like my these are my fiberglassing gloves now. So they're got a nice coat of epoxy on everything. So let's jump in. Okay, guys. So you see my muffled voice now. I'm wearing my respirator. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix this material. And for this, you use equal parts hardener and resin. So I'm just going to mix the material inside the body and then go ahead and start to spread. So this stuff has a 5-minute set time. So that should be plenty of time for me to work it through everything that's here. So you want to make sure you get a nice good mix here. And you just start to work it. And you can see how it's changing as I work it through. It's bonding with the fibers, and it's kind of turning translucent. It says that it doesn't really soak in, but it sure looks like it does. And I mixed a lot of resin here, so I'm going to try to cover a lot of area. Now it's probably better to just, work in smaller chunks, and that's what I'm going to do for the other body. But since this guy is just all uniform, there's not a lot of detail work in it. I just said, screw it, I'm just going to go all out. And remember, the strength in this material does not come from the epoxy. The strength is in the fibers. The epoxy is just holding the fibers in place. So going really heavy on the resin doesn't really buy you anything. So don't fall into that trap. Spread it thin and maximize it. Get as much out of this stuff as you can. Okay, so I'm going to let that side of the body start to set a little bit. Start focusing on the front a little. So just kind of seeing, you can see how this is already kind of, it's got that wet look, and it's bonded in. And starting to smooth itself out. It's starting to look very uniform. That's what you want. You don't want big globs anywhere. You don't want big anything that looks like it would work too much. Okay. So I'm gonna focus on the front of the body here. And by the time I get this done, this should be pretty much close to setting. And then I can turn my attention to the back of the body. And doing this way is actually pretty clean. So I want to put down here, that's a glob that's about the size of a $50. It's about the same. So you want to try to be somewhat careful so that you don't, get the ratios wrong. But I mean, it's basically what happens if you get the hardness ratio a little bit wrong. When you program, it's a fudge factor, so you can't screw it up too bad. But that just means that it's going to take longer for it to cure. So again, start at the point and work out. With this material, it doesn't stretch, so you want to make sure that you're starting from the point that's locked in and then radiating out from that. And if you do get a little bubble area, it's not the end of the world. There's little things you can do. Like for example, these wheel wells, I can cut that material there, and that'll help it to be able to stretch. Well, help it be able to lay in multiple directions. So I'm probably gonna have to do that here. So again, you see it's nice. You can see it turning translucent there. That means that the resin is getting in between fibers and it's bonding optically. But keep in mind, fiberglass is glass. It's literal glass fibers. So when you get the epoxy or the resin bonded in it really well, it turns clear because it is glass. So that's a cue to you that it's doing what it's supposed to do. If it still looks cloudy, that means that the material isn't getting in all the nooks and crannies in between these fibers. Now again, like I said, it's not the end of the world if you don't get the best mix, or even work it down inside, absolutely perfectly. Because what you're doing is locking these things in place. Another reason I like using this particular material is that by the time you usually get done working on one side of the body or one section of the body, the next section of the body is set. So it gives you relatively low downtime as you're working all through. Okay, so I'm going to take a second and do some trim work here. Okay, now I just want to warn you guys that there's a couple of places in the body that it's just not going to fit pretty well, like right here around these wheel wells. So because, like I said, this material doesn't stretch, there's a concave portion in here where it has to pull down. And the only way to really get the material to lay in here right is to do some relief cuts. And that's perfectly fine. So just remember where you cut, just go back later after the fact and take some small strips like this and just bond those on top of it. And then you have a nice, perfectly structural sound joint. So as I give my wife the honor of revealing the new car's paint job. Well, that's okay. So there's a little blemish right there.
I like put a sticker there.
I guess I could.
MIT.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this isn't really made to be. I mean, it's made to be a cool looking run body.
Yes, I like the see-through fiberglass here. No, it's really cool. I like it. I like it.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So here we have my completed fiberglass reinforced body, and this thing, just as with the previous fiberglass bodies, this thing is really, really strong. So I'm very pleased with how this came out. A couple little issues that did pop up. My new technique of not using any intermediate bonding glue to join the two the inner and outer body together, I'll call that a moderate success. Because what happened is, when everything was said and done, there were some places like around the edges and such where I was in a little bit of a rush and I didn't really force the resin through as well as I probably could have. So when the epoxy set, it really didn't have a good adhesion to this. So, however, like I mentioned before, I went around and I put 10 pop rivets around the outside body. And with that in place, I really don't need much adhesion in the rest of that, because the two bodies, the inner and outer, are now mechanically joined. They can't go anywhere. So all the loads that are going to be experienced are going to be spread between the two, and they're going to work as a structural unit. And it is strong. So I'm like I said, I'm happy with, from a strength standpoint and from a functionality standpoint, how it came out. So maybe next time I do this, I might use the intermediary or the intermediate glue to make sure that everything's held on again, or I just might do it this way. I'm gonna just it's gonna take a little bit of running with this type of reinforced system to see which one I really like better. But like, not with this body, because this body's gonna go on eBay. But with this one over here, which, as you can see, I pulled off the protective covering, and I'm not quite fully done yet. I need to put the decals and all that on it, but you can see it's pretty nice. So I got my scale out here. So this is a question, like someone actually asked me this a long time ago: how much does reinforcing one of these bodies add in weight? Now, the question was asked about Dizzy, and Dizzy is a slash. So that body is actually significantly smaller than this body, and I didn't appreciate how much larger the XO1 body was until I actually started to work with this. So here we go. This is a fully stocked, pretty much new condition XO1 body. So let me go ahead and weigh this guy. This body's big, so it's gonna, let me see if I can maneuver the scale so I can actually read it. Okay, let's try that one more time. Okay, let's clear the scale. Oops. Let's try that one more time. Clear the scale. 0. Okay. And let's see. Are we balanced? Yes, we're balanced. And I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but it's showing 11 ounces. Yeah, 11 ounces. And for you guys overseas, that's 312 grams. Okay, so now let me weigh the reinforced body. Okay, so I am showing 506 grams. Let me see if I can maneuver this where it can be actually read. Okay, there we go. So 506 grams. Oh, just make 507 grams. And going back to ounces. Yeah, that's 1 pound and 1 pound and 1.9 ounces. So 1 pound, 2 ounces. So this is nearly double the weight So the new reinforced body is now, you know, half a kilogram. So, okay, so I just add a half a pound of weight to the car. Okay guys, so I got my new run body together. Get it all trimmed up and riveted. And let's check its weight. So this guy weighs in at 1 pound, 0.85 ounces. So let's convert that to grams, 477 grams. So, keep going right past it. Okay, so this one is slightly lighter than the other one, which makes sense because I have slightly less fiberglass on this than before. But I mean, it's still significantly heavier than the completely stock body, but I'm willing to sacrifice that for the strength. And like I said, this is significantly stronger. Okay, so I just add a half a pound of weight to the car. Is that a positive or a negative? Well, it's adding a lot of strength, and I say that's a positive. And that extra strength is going to protect the internals. And you know, I think that's all. I think that's all in the direction of goodness. So you have to make your decision if you think it's worth reinforcing the body. But I think it is definitely worth it because, you know, it was a lot of expensive electronics inside of these things. And there's an old expression, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You know, if you can do something simple that will keep your expensive bits from becoming expensive junk, then I say why not do it? And it doesn't take that long to do this. I mean, there's a process, don't get me wrong, but it's not that long. And when you put it on and you see this is down in those channels and you secure it, for my car, I'm going to be not using the clips. I'm going to use the Proline screw-on connectors. But yeah, I mean, when this is all together, this makes a fully enclosed, you know, very secure structure. You know, that's going to keep everything that's inside of there, hopefully inside of there, but you know, keep it all very well protected against impact. And you know, there's no flex. There's going to be no fluttering in the wind. You know, this is, and I'm really just, you know, with the body on the car, you know, just kind of pushing around. I wish I could express this through the video. I mean, I'm pushing now with a pretty good amount of force here. There's no deflection. This thing is very strong. So I think this is definitely going to work out well. All right. So one thing to be concerned with though is that, you know, by fiberglassing, it added thickness to these body post areas. So if you're going to use the cotter pins, you know, this may be an issue for you because if I remember correctly, this barely fit on before. So having a pin in hand, actually I take that back. Okay, the front seems to work okay. Let me go ahead and just put it in. Yep, front works. All right, so let me go ahead and do the rear, double check it to make sure it works. Okay, that wasn't successful. Ugh. Okay, so I'm trying this again. Putting these things in one hand is fun, by the way. Okay, so yeah, it looks like, it looks like it will work. So I take that back. Working with the pins isn't that bad. So all in all, I say that this is definitely a worthwhile project for me, for my application, for my paranoia and general state of health.